Welcome back to Reformed Thinking. It is good to be back at the table with you.
It is always a pleasure to be here.
So I want to start today's conversation with a feeling. It's a sensation I think most of us have felt maybe late at night when the house is finally quiet, or maybe when you're stuck in traffic on the morning commute. Or honestly, even when things are going really well, you just got the promotion, the kids are healthy, the mortgage is under control.
The quintessential I have made it moment.
Yeah,
You've checked all the boxes society tells you to check.
exactly. But even in that moment, there's this gnawing sense of being unsettled. You look around at your life, your furniture, your job, your city, and it all feels solid, it feels real, but at the same time, it feels like it's not quite right.
Like a coat that doesn't fit perfectly across the shoulders. That's a great way to put it.
Yeah, it's just a little bit off, and you
Yeah.
can't put your finger on why.
That is a very, very common human experience. I mean, philosophers have wrestled with it for centuries. But I think for the Christian, specifically for the listener we're talking to today, that feeling isn't just a mood swing. It's not just anxiety or a midlife crisis.
It's something more.
It's actually a distinct theological reality. It's a fact of our existence if we understand our condition correctly.
That distinction is why I'm so excited about the text we're pulling apart today. We're looking at a sermon that takes that feeling of unsettledness and frames it not as a problem to be solved with more comfort or better vacation, but as the defining characteristic of the Christian life. We are looking at Jonathan Edwards,
The heavy hitter, the theological architect of the Great Awakening.
the man himself. Specifically, we're looking at a sermon he preached way back in September 1733. Now, the title uses a specific word that we're going to be careful with today because we want to keep our language fresh, but the title is The Christian Pilgrim, or sometimes it's cataloged as The True Christian's Life, A Journey Toward Heaven.
And right off the bat, we need to set the stakes here. Edwards is not offering us a little life hack for better time management. He is not giving us 5 steps to a balanced life.
No, this is not a self-help talk.
Not at all. He is presenting a total reorientation of reality. He is arguing that if you are a believer, your relationship with this planet is fundamentally ontologically different from the relationship a non-believer has with it.
Fundamentally different. So let's get into the text. Where does he ground this? Edwards anchors this entire concept in Scripture, specifically Hebrews 11.
That's right. Hebrews 11, verses 13 to 14. This is the famous Hall of Faith chapter. The author of Hebrews is listing the heavy weights of the Old Testament, Abraham, Isaac, Jacob. And he points out something fascinating about their psychology, their mindset.
Okay.
He says these men confess that they were strangers and pilgrims on the earth.
Strangers and pilgrims. Those are heavy labels. That's
Yeah.
not how you describe someone who's comfortable.
Not at all. And verse 14 explains the logic. For they that say such things declare plainly that they seek a country.
Ah, that's the key insight right there. By admitting you're a stranger here, you are effectively shouting that your home is somewhere else. You can't be a stranger if you are at home.
Precisely. If you are comfortable, if you feel perfectly at ease, if the world fits you like a glove, then, well, you aren't seeking anything. You've arrived. You are a resident.
You settled in.
You've settled in. But Edwards points us back to Genesis to show this wasn't just a mood for them. Look at Abraham in Genesis 23, verse 4. He's talking to the sons of Heth, the locals, the people who actually own the land. And he says, I am a stranger and a sojourner with you.
And Abraham was wealthy. We need to remember that. He was not a vagrant. He had power and possessions.
Extremely wealthy. The text says he had livestock, silver, gold, hundreds of servants. But what did he live in his whole life?
Tents.
Tents. He never built a permanent stone structure. He never dug a foundation and said, this is it. This is the family estate forever. He was always ready to move. And then think about Jacob. In Genesis 47, verse 9, he's standing before Pharaoh. Now, picture this. Pharaoh is essentially a god king, the most powerful man on earth living in a palace of stone and gold, the very symbol of earthly permanence.
Right.
And Jacob describes his life to him. He says, the days of the years of my pilgrimage are 130 years. Few and evil have the days of the years of my life been.
Few and evil. That is not exactly the Instagram bio most people would choose today, living my best life. No, Jacob says, it has been short and it has been hard.
It's a stark contrast to our modern obsession with projecting success and happiness at all times. But Jacob is acknowledging that even though he has lived a long time, and even though he's accumulated wealth and a huge family, he never settled. He never drove his stakes too deep into the ground. He remained a transient.
So this is the premise Edwards sets up. We are not residents, we are transients. And to explain what that actually looks like, because that can sound very abstract, he uses this incredible analogy of a traveler at an inn.
It's a vivid illustration. It really grounds the theology into something tangible and easy to grasp.
Okay, let's unpack this. Edwards describes a traveler who is on a long trek. He's been walking all day, he's tired, he's hungry, he stops at an inn for the night.
Makes sense.
Now, this traveler, he needs rest, so he enjoys the bed, he eats the food, he warms his hands by the fire, he is grateful for the shelter, he is not sitting there grumpy and miserable, wishing he were still out in the cold.
Right. He uses the amenities. He's thankful for them because they serve a purpose in helping him on his way.
Thus, and this is the core of it, he does not start measuring the windows for new curtains. He doesn't call a contractor to talk about knocking down a wall to open up the kitchen.
He's not looking at paint swatches for the hallway.
Exactly, because he knows he's leaving in the morning. This is not his home.
It's just a temporary stop.
Edwards says the traveler takes a transient view of the comforts. If the inn is nice with a soft bed and good food, great. If the inn is a bit drafty or the service is bad, well, that's okay too because he is not staying. It doesn't ultimately matter that much.
And Edwards applies this to how we view the natural world and earthly pleasures. He talks about walking past pleasant meadows or groves of trees. The traveler might look at them and say, "That is beautiful." He might enjoy the smell of the flowers or the shade of the trees for a moment.
Sure, he can appreciate beauty.
Absolutely. But here's the key. He does not stop walking. He doesn't build a house in the meadow just because it's pretty. He keeps moving because the meadow is not the destination.
This is where the rubber meets the road for us. Because we live in a culture that tells us to maximize our comfort right now. Live your best life, treat yourself. The whole message is, build your perfect little kingdom in this meadow.
And make it as comfortable and permanent as possible.
But Edwards is saying, no, possess these things, enjoy them, use them, but keep your heart loose.
That is the theological weight of it. It is about the posture of the heart. We can have families, friends, goods, careers. Edwards is not calling for a monk-like asceticism where we own nothing and live in a barrel. He was a Puritan, not a Gnostic. He believed matter was good, a gift from God.
Right. This isn't about hating the world.
Not at all. It's about putting it in its proper place. He is saying we must be ready to quit them the moment God calls. The heart cannot be glued to the furniture of the inn.
That is a tough visual. If you are glued to the furniture when it is time to leave, you are going to get torn apart.
And that is often why death or loss is so devastatingly traumatic for those who have not adopted this mindset. If you think this is home, eviction is the ultimate tragedy. If you know it is an inn, checking out is just the next step in the itinerary.
There is another aspect of this traveler mindset that I found really interesting and honestly a little countercultural. It's the anticipation of the end. Edwards says the traveler is actually happy when he puts a mile behind him.
Yes, this is completely counterintuitive to the modern mind. We are obsessed with anti-aging. We tried to freeze time. We have an entire industry, a multi-billion-dollar industry, built on creams and surgeries and diets to make us look 25 forever.
We see the passing of time as a loss. Every birthday is a little bit sadder.
We treat it as a tragedy. But for the pilgrim, every year that passes is a mile marker that says you are closer to home. Every gray hair is a sign that the remaining distance is shorter.
That reframes getting older completely. It is not a loss of time. It is a reduction of the remaining distance on the map.
It changes the birthday party from a lament to a celebration of progress. Edwards cites 1 Corinthians 7 here, verses 29 to 31. The time is short. And then Paul gives that very challenging instruction.
This one is tough.
It is. It remaineth that both they that have wives be as though they had none, and they that weep as though they wept not, and they that rejoice as though they rejoiced not.
Okay, we have to pause there because that sounds harsh. Those that have wives be as though they had none. Is the Bible saying we should ignore our families? Just treat your spouse like a stranger because you're busy hiking to heaven?
Yeah, like, sorry, honey, can't help with the dishes. I'm focusing on eternity.
Right. How do we understand that without it becoming cold and detached?
No, and it is vital we clarify that. Neither Paul nor Edwards is advocating for neglect. Edwards was a famously devoted father and husband to Sarah Edwards. Their marriage is actually legendary in church history for its warmth and intellectual partnership.
So he lived this out in a loving way.
Absolutely. The point is about ultimate reliance and ultimate satisfaction. You love your wife, you cherish your husband, but you do not make them your God. You do not make them your final destination.
So they're not the end of the trek.
They are a companion on the trek. You enjoy them as companions on the road, as aids to your travel, but you hold them with that loose hand we talked about. If your entire existence collapses because you lose a relationship, it suggests that relationship had become your home rather than a comfort at the inn.
That is helpful. It is about the hierarchy of affection. My spouse is a gift for the road, but they aren't the destination the road leads to.
Radical subordination, which we will get to. But yes, it is realizing that the fashion of this world passes away. It is all temporary. The inn will be torn down one day.
So we have the mindset, we're strangers. Now let's talk about the method. How do we actually travel? Because Edwards is very specific here. You can't just wander around aimlessly and hope you end up in the right place.
No, there is a specific route. There is one designated road. Edwards called it the way of holiness.
And he references Hebrews 12, verse 1, about laying aside every weight and the sin that so easily entangles us.
This is critical. The path to heaven is not a physical road. It is a spiritual condition. It's a lifestyle of obedience and sanctification. Edwards says we must choose to travel in this way and no other. And here is where he is incredibly realistic. I appreciate this about Reformed theology. It does not sugarcoat the struggle.
Oh, absolutely. He does not say, come to Jesus and life will be a bed of roses.
Quite the opposite. He says the road is uphill.
Uphill. That one word says so much. It's against gravity. It requires effort.
It's a climb, and the terrain is a wilderness. He talks about mountains, rocks, and rough places. If you are hiking a steep mountain trail, you expect your legs to burn. You expect to be out of breath. You expect fatigue.
You expect to stumble?
You expect to stumble. You expect thorns and sharp rocks. Edwards says the Christian life is laborious. It requires the exertion of strength.
That word laborious stood out to me. I think sometimes we drift into this idea that grace means passivity, like, God saves me, so I will just float on a cloud until I die. But Edwards is talking about sweat. He is talking about effort.
Grace grounds the effort, but it does not eliminate it. The effort is the evidence of the life within. And a big part of that effort is self-denial. This goes back to the luggage analogy. If you are on this hard uphill climb and you have a desire, a lust, a habit, a seemingly innocent pleasure that hinders your climb, what do?
You drop it. You have to.
You have to, even if it is pleasant, even if you really, really like it. If it stops your progress, if it makes the climb impossible, it is a threat.
It's like hiking with a backpack full of bricks. You might like the bricks. Maybe they are gold bricks. But if they prevent you from reaching the summit, they are just weights dragging you down to death.
That's a perfect image for it. And this motion, this climbing, it's as continuous. There is no retirement plan for the pilgrim in this life. You don't reach a certain age and say, okay, I've climbed enough, now I'll just set up camp halfway up the mountain.
The daily work concept.
Yes. Edwards points out that this starts early. He encourages youth to begin the trek, and it goes until the very end. If you are not moving forward, you are not doing the work. Every single day is a segment of travel. You don't take a vacation from holiness. You don't take a weekend off from obedience.
And he brings up the children of Israel in the wilderness as a warning. They got discouraged, the way was hard, the water was scarce, the food was boring, and they said,
let us go back to Egypt.
Let's go back to slavery because at least the food was better.
That is the perennial temptation. The road is hard, so we romanticize the slavery we left behind. We remember the leeks and onions of Egypt, the fleeting pleasures of sin, and we conveniently forget the whip and the bondage. Edwards insists we must have perseverance. We cannot stop short.
This leads us right into the next section, which is about priorities. Edwards calls this subordination. And honestly, this was the most challenging part of the text for me personally.
It is a rigorous standard. It's meant to be.
So, Edwards says that all concerns of life must be subordinate to the travel. Not some, not most, all of them. And he gives us a filter question to ask ourselves.
Will this forward me in my way to heaven?
That is the question. Every action, every business deal, every friendship, every hobby, you hold it up and ask, does this help me get to heaven? Does this make the climb easier or harder?
And if the answer is no, Edwards says we must quit the design.
That is intense. Think about how many things we do just because we are bored or because everyone else is doing it or just to kill time.
Edward would say we have no time to kill. We are racing against the sunset. Every moment is either a step toward home or it isn't. And this applies to our money and possessions too. He returns to the traveler analogy. A hiker carries money. Why?
To buy supplies, to pay for the inn, to get food and water.
Right. The money is a tool to sustain the travel. It is fuel for the hike. It is not a collection for a museum. If the traveler starts carrying so much gold that he cannot walk up the hill, what has the wealth become?
A clog, a hindrance, a very shiny, heavy hindrance.
Exactly. This is the reformed view of stewardship. We do not accumulate for the sake of accumulation. We steward resources to propel ourselves and others toward God. If your wealth is weighing you down, making you love the world, making you anxious, making you forget the destination, it has become a trap.
It's radical subordination. Everything gets demoted below the primary mission. My job exists to help me get to heaven. My house exists to help me get to heaven. My bank account exists to help me get to heaven.
And if they stop doing that, if they become an end in themselves, they have to go, or at least our heart's relationship to them has to change.
So we have talked about the how and the what, but we need to get to the why. Why live this way? It sounds hard. Why treat the world like a cheap motel? Why deny ourselves these comforts that everyone else seems to be enjoying?
This is the engine of the whole thing. Without the why, the how is just legalism.
Right. It's just a miserable list of rules.
But Edwards explains the theology here. He gives two main reasons for this transience. First, simply the nature of time. Man's days are a shadow.
He quotes Job 14, verse 12. Man lieth down and riseth not again till the heavens be no more.
It is the brevity of life.
Hmm.
Even if you live to be 90, what is that compared to eternity? It is a snap of the fingers. It's a vapor that appears for a little while and then vanishes. God never designed this world to be our permanent home. It is a testing ground. It's a prep school. It is the womb, not the life itself.
Okay, so that's the negative reason, in a sense. This place is temporary. But the second reason is the positive one. It's about what or who is waiting at the end of the road.
Yes. This is where Edwards soars. He talks about the supreme good. In the Westminster Confession, the first question is, what is the chief end of man? And the answer is,
To glorify God and to enjoy Him forever.
to enjoy Him. Not just to obey Him, not just to serve Him, but to find our ultimate delight and satisfaction in Him. Edwards picks up on this. He argues that heaven is the only place where our highest good is obtained because that is where God is fully present.
And he uses this beautiful imagery of the sun and the beam. I loved this part.
It's stunning. He says earthly friends and comforts. A loving spouse, a good meal, a beautiful sunset, they're just scattered beams of light. But God is the sun.
Wow.
And earthly goods, possessions, money, they're streams, but God is the fountain. Earthly drops, God is the ocean.
That is such a powerful logic check. Why are we chasing the beam, the little reflection of light, when we can have the sun itself? Why are we settling for a drop of water when we can have the entire ocean?
It exposes the irrationality of idolatry. When we love the world more than God, we are preferring the shadow to the substance. We are preferring the echo to the voice. Edwards is saying, look, everything you love about this world, the beauty, the love, the joy, is all just a tiny, imperfect derivative of God.
It's like falling in love with a picture of a burger instead of eating the actual burger.
A very American analogy, but yes, that's exactly. And in this life, our union with God is imperfect, it is mingled with sin. We see through a glass darkly, as Paul says. But Edwards describes heaven as the place of perfect union. He says there, our hearts will be pure offerings in a flame of divine love.
That is a beautiful phrase, a flame of divine love.
It implies total consumption. We are fully absorbed in the enjoyment of God. That is why we travel. That is why we endure the rocks and the hills. Because the ocean is waiting. The sun is at the end of the path.
Now, this theology of transience has some very practical and honestly very tender implications. Edwards talks about how this changes the way we handle grief and death.
This is a pastoral section. Edwards was a pastor, remember. He wasn't just an academic theologian. He buried congregants. He buried his own children. He knew grief intimately.
And he argues for moderation in mourning.
Moderation. That is a tough word when you are standing at a graveside. It sounds almost cold.
It does. How do you moderate that kind of pain?
Well, follow his logic. If this life is a hard uphill trek through a wilderness full of rocks and storms, and if heaven is the glorious home of rest and the ocean of joy, then what has happened to the believer who dies?
They made it. They finished the hike. They're home.
Exactly. They have reached the destination. The fatigue is over. The danger is over. The struggle with sin is over. Edwards quotes Ecclesiastes 7, verse 1, "The day of death is better than the day of one's birth."
That is hard for us to swallow. The day of birth is a celebration. The day of death is a tragedy. That's our default setting.
It is hard because we are the ones left behind in the wilderness. We are still sweating. We are still bleeding. We feel the loss of their companionship on the trail. But Edwards says if we grieve immoderately, if we fall apart as if all is lost, we are acting as if they have lost something, when in reality they have gained everything.
He says they are drinking from rivers of pleasure while we are still hiking the rough terrain.
Right. To grieve without hope is to implicitly say you wish they were back here on the painful trail with you instead of at home with their father. So we mourn because we are human. Edwards acknowledges we have animal propensities. We miss their presence. We feel the sting of separation.
But we mix that sorrow with joy.
We mix it with joy for their sake and with hope for our own, because we are traveling to the same place.
Yes, it is not goodbye forever. It is see you at the house.
If you are on a road trip with two cars, and the front car arrives at the destination an hour before you, you don't panic. You don't wail and tear your clothes. You miss talking to them on the walkie-talkie, but you know you will see them when you get there.
That really changes the atmosphere of a funeral, does it not? It shifts it from a tragedy to, an arrival.
It shifts it to a coronation. Their struggle is over, and their reward has begun.
Now we have to pivot.
Yeah.
Because Edwards does not just offer comfort. He issues a stark, terrifying warning. There's not just one road.
No. And this is vital. This is the part of Puritan preaching that modern ears often want to skip over. Edwards says, if you're not traveling to heaven, you are not standing still. There's no neutral ground. You are traveling to hell.
The two destinies.
And while the road to heaven is uphill and laborious, the road to hell is a downward sprint. It's easy.
He describes wicked men spending every day traveling toward destruction. And he gets very specific. He lists some types of travelers on this wrong road.
He does. He's not speaking in generalities. He mentions unclean persons, those living in sexual immorality, malicious persons, backbiters, gossips, those who tear others down, unjust dealers, fraudsters, scammers, those who cheat in business.
And tavern haunters, which was his 18th century way of describing those consumed by partying and dissipation, the person whose life revolves around pleasure and distraction.
Right. And he says these people, with every passing day, treasure up wrath.
That's a chilling phrase from Romans. Treasuring up wrath, like you're putting it in a savings account.
And they grow ripe for destruction.
Yeah.
That is a horrifying image, like a fruit that is rotting on the vine, becoming perfectly ready to be discarded and burned.
And he uses another water metaphor here, but it is not the ocean of God's love.
No. He talks about a mighty river disemboguing, emptying out into the ocean. He sees the multitudes of the world, the broad wave, flowing down easily, naturally with the current.
Straight into the lake of fire.
It is the path of least resistance. You do not have to climb to go to hell. You just have to float.
Wow, you just have to do what feels natural.
Precisely. Gravity takes you there. Sin takes you there. To go to heaven requires fighting the current. To go to hell, you just have to do nothing. Just go with the flow.
That is sobering.
It is meant to be. Edwards wants to wake up the listener who thinks, well, I am not a bad person. I'm just living my life. He is saying, if you are not actively climbing, you are falling. There is no middle ground.
So what do? We have heard the warning. We have seen the destination. How do we actually put this into action? Edwards doesn't leave us hanging. He ends with some very practical directions.
First, he addresses the issue of conversion. And he makes a point that I think many modern evangelicals miss. He says conversion is the starting line, not the finish line.
Right. I think we often treat salvation like fire insurance. Okay, I prayed the prayer, I'm safe from hell, now I can just relax until Jesus comes back.
Edwards says that is madness. Conversion is when you enter the gate. That is when the pilgrimage begins. He critiques those who rest after getting saved. He says, actually, you should strive more now.
Why more? That seems counterintuitive.
Because now you have tasted the grapes of Canaan. Now you know the value of what you are seeking. Before you were saved, you were blind to the glory of the destination. Now you see the goal. The motivation should be 100 times stronger. He references Philippians 3.13. Forgetting what is behind, reaching forth to what is before.
So the Christian life is active. It is a striving. It's a race.
Always. Then he gives 4 specific practical directions for the listener, for you.
Let's run through these. Number 1, realize vanity.
This sounds grim, but it's practical. He says, go to funerals. Look at the glass of death, the mirror of death. See how vain the world is. Stop pretending that you're going to live here forever. Let the reality of mortality sink in and break your addiction to the world.
That feels very medieval, almost. The idea of memento mori, remember you will die.
It's a timeless spiritual discipline. It recalibrates your values instantly.
Okay. Number 2, get acquainted with heaven.
This is about meditation. He says, think about heaven constantly. If you don't know the destination, you will not walk towards it. You need to fill your mind with the glory that awaits. Read descriptions of it in Scripture. Read good books about it. Pray about it.
Because if you never think about heaven, the world will seem very big and very attractive.
Exactly. If you think about heaven, the world shrinks down to its proper size. It becomes the little inn, not the palace.
Number 3, use the door.
This is the gospel check.
Yes.
This is crucial. We've talked a lot about labor and climbing and striving, and a listener might think, okay, I just have to try harder. But Edwards is clear. We cannot walk this road with our own righteousness. We need Christ.
I am the way, the truth, and the life.
Exactly. We seek heaven only through Jesus Christ. We rely on his strength for the climb. We do not climb to earn salvation. We climb because we have been given new life and supernatural strength by the Savior. He is the path itself.
That's a vital clarification. And finally, number 4, walk together.
Christian fellowship. He says company is desirable on a hard road. This is not a solo trek. If you trip, you need someone to help you up. If you get discouraged, you need someone to remind you of the destination.
You're not fall out or argue, by the way. I like that. That's a great piece of advice for the church. Stop bickering on the trail. We have a mountain to climb.
Precisely. We are a band of pilgrims. We need each other. We need to encourage one another and, when necessary, correct one another to stay on the path.
So here we are. We have unpacked the Christian Pilgrim. We are strangers at an inn. The world is not our home. The road is hard. It's uphill. But the destination is the ocean of God himself.
It is a majestic, all-encompassing vision of the Christian life. It strips away the triviality.
It really does. It makes all my worries about, my lawn or my 401k seem pretty small in the grand scheme of things.
They are small. They are temporary provisions for the road. Use them, be thankful for them, but do not worship them. Do not let them become the reason you stop walking.
I want to leave you, the listener, with a final thought to chew on this week. Edwards challenged his hearers to declare plainly that they are seeking a country. That's an outward-facing action. So here's my question. If a complete stranger, a non-believer, were to audit your life, if they looked at your Google Calendar, your credit card statement, your browser history, and the things you lay awake worrying about at 3:30 a.m., would they be forced to conclude that you are a stranger just passing through?
That's a hard question.
Or would they assume, based on all the evidence, that you are settling down, building your permanent kingdom right here at the inn?
That is the question, and only you can answer it.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Reformed thinking. Keep climbing.
Grace and peace.